evening, our dear viewers, and welcome to our exclusive interview from KTV2. During today's unique episode, we will be honored to host a distinguished international figure who plays a key role in her domain as both a politician and diplomat. A word of gratitude goes out to Her Excellency Barbara A. Leaf, the United States Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, as we welcome Her Excellency to the state of Kuwait. During her prestigious career, the Assistant Secretary Leaf held various positions, further highlighting the region's relations with the U.S., solidifying its deep-rooted essence. The United States and Kuwait's diplomatic relations began back in 1961 and is constantly renewed with ongoing cooperation and diplomatic exchanges between the two nations. The United States shares an immensely long history of friendship and cooperation with the state of Kuwait, embedded in shared principles, democratic backgrounds, and ongoing cooperation at various levels. Now, before we delve into the interview, we will begin with a small introduction on Her Excellency Barbara A. Leaf, United States Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs. Welcome back, our dear viewers, to today's unique episode that highlights Her Excellency Barbara A. Leaf's visit, as well as the United States relations with the state of Kuwait. The state of Kuwait and the United States have also joined hands in international arenas, as both nations belong to a number of the same international organizations, including the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the World Trade Organization. Being part of international organizations, the state of Kuwait and the United States have always walked the same path, calling for world security and stability, whether in the political, cultural, economic, or societal fields. The state of Kuwait is honored to have built a deep-rooted relationship with the United States that has grown stronger from the independence through the liberation and up to this day. And now it's time to take a look at the interview with Her Excellency Barbara A. Leaf and her official visit to Kuwait in her role as the U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs.
Well, I'm delighted to be here. As I told Sheikh Salem yesterday, your new foreign minister, it's really great. I feel I've come home in a way. I have a long association with Kuwait, going back to my early days as a diplomat, and it's really great to be here at this time. This is part of a small regional tour that I'm doing. I came over to the Department of State at the end of May from the National Security Council, where I had been for about a year and a half as a senior advisor to the President for the Middle East. And much of my time at the outset was very consumed with doing the final preparations for the President's major visit to the region in July. So I'm making up for lost time in my position to get out and consult with governments. I'm doing bits of the region every few weeks, coming out to consult with partners on a range of both global and regional issues. So as I said, this is a long partnership that we've had with Kuwait for decades, and it's one that I'm really looking forward to deepening and expanding in every way possible. So you are going to see me traveling like this virtually every month. I hope not to make as long a trip next time. I'll have been on the road for 2 weeks by the time I finish. But look, I am personally engaging with the governments of this region on a host of issues. Of course, bilateral issues, but many of them are quite profoundly engaged in regional diplomacy. And so I'm looking to better understand their perspective on issues ranging from Libya to Yemen to Syria, the new government recently formed in Iraq, and looking to see how we might best align and coordinate our efforts on some really key issues, not only in the region, but also in the Horn of Africa. So every visit will be different. I will include different countries each time. Some I'll go back to for a second go around, depending on what level of intensity we're at in our policy coordination. And the problem in Yemen, of course, doesn't stay in Yemen. It's not only that the Houthis are able to oppress the Yemeni people, they're able to threaten international shipping in the Bab el-Mandeb, and they are progressively able to range their threats against the entire Arabian Peninsula. So the issue has not gotten better over time. And indeed, my colleague, Dana Stroll, Deputy Assistant Secretary for Defense Stroll, is deeply engaged on the efforts to help our partners thicken and their resilience and their self-defense. So let me take this point about Yemen first. Part of my priority list of issues as I have gone from capital to capital has been to discuss our efforts, our ongoing efforts to get alongside the good efforts of Hans Grunberg, the UN Special Envoy for Yemen, led by our Special Envoy for Yemen, Tim Linderking, whom I spoke to yesterday. We are really pushing hard to get the truce extended. We're doing that in consultation with the Saudis, with the Omanis, with other partners here. So our focus is really on that as a priority. The people of Yemen deserve it. The Arabian Peninsula needs that stability that comes with getting that war to an end. When I and my colleagues at the National Security Council sat down and reviewed the state of the region and consulted with the National Security Advisor, with the Secretary of State and others, with the Secretary of Defense and his staff, what we assessed was that the region was in a state of considerable fragility, but it was also very pressurized. There had been a series of conflicts that had really permeated the region. The President has made very clear, the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Advisor, they've all made clear throughout the last year and a half that the Middle East remains a region of extraordinary interests, U.S. interests, U.S. priority. We have partners here that we've had for decades. We have an extraordinary array of programs and policies and activities that we do in common, regional diplomacies that we pursue. Going back to my earlier comment, the President really looks at the world in a multilateral sense. He said repeatedly, the U.S. can do a lot, and it can lead, and it should lead, but it can't do everything alone, and it won't do everything alone. And so we work in partnership in this region with countries, the Gulf countries, with Egypt, with other, Jordan, Iraq. I wouldn't be spending 2 weeks of my time on the road if we had lost interest or were declining in interest. So I had an opportunity to spend a week in Iraq a few weeks back in September, and what I said there publicly and privately it remains our approach, which is this administration's approach to Iraq. All of its policies, its activities, its engagements are firmly framed around support for Iraq's sovereignty, stability, and security. And that's regardless of who sits in the chair of Prime Minister. Of course, the ebb and flow of the relationship, whether it expands or contracts or what have you, also depends on the government sitting across the table from us. But we are firmly committed to enabling Iraq to achieve greater and greater sovereignty. Sovereignty over its affairs internally, sovereignty in a larger sense, and to foster the integration, the regional integration, which has been so critical to all three of those elements. So we're looking forward to working closely with this government. Our ambassador met with Prime Minister Soudani on Sunday. We have certain expectations. I'm sure they have expectations too.
And this concludes our special coverage of our exclusive interview with Her Excellency Barbara A. Leaf, as the Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs on her official visit to our home, the state of Kuwait. Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to our special coverage of an exclusive interview with our guest, Her Excellency Dana Stroul, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, to discuss a wide range of issues related to the U.S. Defense Department's policies in the Middle East. Before we delve into the Kuwait-U.S. defense cooperation arena, allow us to shift your attention to the state of Kuwait's foreign policy. Kuwait's foreign policy is governed by its belief in mutual respect and equality, characterized by transparency, fairness, and diplomacy. With its belief in seeking international cooperation, the state of Kuwait advocates a world order which rejects aggression and terrorism and respects human rights. Sharing such vital concepts with the state of Kuwait is the United States of America. In order to foster and cement international relations, the state of Kuwait, along with the United States of America, have joined their forces in maintaining world security and stability under their wise leadership. And now, allow us to begin with a small introduction of Her Excellency Dana Stroul, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, as we welcome Her Excellency to the state of Kuwait, and then we'll take a look at our exclusive interview. Before we delve into our exclusive interview with Her Excellency Dana Stroul, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East, allow us to continue highlighting the joint defense cooperation between the U.S. and Kuwait. The state of Kuwait has been pivotal to the decades-long U.S. efforts to secure the region's security due to its consistent cooperation with U.S. military operations in the region, in addition to its geographical location. The state of Kuwait and the United States of America have a formal Defense Cooperation Agreement, or DCA, under which the United States deploys military personnel in the country and prepositions substantial quantities of military equipment. Not only this, but the United States also provides high-tech equipment as well as defense training packages to the state of Kuwait, in line with the two nations' vision, further highlighting regional and international security. But up next, our exclusive interview with Her Excellency Dana Stroul.
The Department of Defense has tens of thousands of U.S. forces stationed all across the Middle East in critical places with every one of our partners. Through that force presence, we are, one, using it to enhance the defense and contribute to the security and stability of the region. And with those tens of thousands of forces present, we are doing exercising joint training, both bilateral basis and on a multilateral basis on a daily basis. I also want to emphasize, hopefully you all saw that we have new leadership at U.S. Central Command, General Eric Kurilla. He is the right man with the right vision to lead U.S. forces in this critical part of the world at this time. He is focused on enhancing our partnerships, and when he looks at the global landscape, he is looking at innovation and the rapid pace of developing technology, and is consulting with your military and defense leadership on ways to enhance and advance those partnerships, both now and for well into the future. Specifically with Kuwait, Kuwait has long been a generous host to many, many U.S. forces. We could not maintain our force presence in Syria and Iraq today, which you heard Assistant Secretary Leaf mention. There are still U.S. forces in harm's way every day committed to the fight to defeat Daesh. We are doing that in partnership, both with our local partner in northeast Syria and with the Iraqi security forces. We would not be able to continue that advice and assistance relationship without the cooperation and support from your government, your people, and your armed forces. We also use that force presence here to do joint training, exercises, to enhance our bilateral relationship, make sure that we can work together if there ever should be a crisis. And finally, Secretary of Defense Austin has charged us to really revitalize and expand our partnerships globally and of course specifically in the Middle East. So for him, he is looking not at just what we can do together, but what we can do on a multilateral basis, which is why events like the US-GCC Defense Working Groups must be rescheduled in the future. We're committed again not only to integrating how we work together to counter Iran's lethal drone program, its ballistic and cruise missiles, but also its aggression and unsafe, unprofessional actions at sea. These are things that the U.S. is committed to, and so the question of, do we still share interests? I think the answer is absolutely yes.
And that was it for our special interview with our distinguished guest, an important international figure, Her Excellency Dana Stroul, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.